It's a chilly one this morning. It was just a few degrees above freezing, and it's not much warmer in the cabin because there hasn't been any heat. It's getting to that time of year that I'm going to need a little extra warmth, and chances are it's going to come from a wood stove. Now this Old Faithful here is what I used last year. And I was hoping to use it this year after I got the flooring in and I put it back. I got it a little closer to the wall this time. But unfortunately, I have some bad news because I had a WETT inspector in here and he told me from the ground to the roof, absolutely nothing is acceptable. Stove's got to go. The hearth's gotta go, the pipe's gotta go, everything has to be replaced, and that's a little unfortunate. I was hoping I could keep something, but I can't. And it's not that it's impossible to get an old stove to be certified. It's just if you do certify an old stove, you're gonna get something like, well, it can't be within 4 feet of a wall, so there's no point. It has to go here. I mean, I've got the hole in the roof. I'm not going to change the hole in the roof. What I have to do is change the stove. You know, it was a good old stove. It kept me warm when I was here in the winter last year. But not this one. I got to get rid of it, and I got to get something else. So the first thing I have to do is show the old one the door. Might not be easy. There it goes. Ugh. Next was the chimney pipe, which was oil rated but not wood rated. Oh boy. Thing weighs a ton. Can't even lift it. Oh. Oh. Okay. Here it goes. Oh boy. Oh. It would have been better if I'd cleaned out the stovepipe of all the soot first. Poof. But here it goes. Ugh. Well, good news, I now have a new stove, or new to me at least. It's called a Vega, and it's made by J.A. Roby, Quebec company. Really good reputation, really good quality, high-efficient stove. And I love it. It's on a stand, on a pedestal. It's got the tray for the ash, glass window, think it's big enough. You know, it is big enough. I know it is. These are about $1,400 Canadian with all the taxes, which is about $1,000 US, but I didn't pay that much. One of the nice things about being in a local rural community is people look after each other, and it was the WETT inspector that found this for me. Somebody in the, out in the farmlands was getting rid of the stove. It's only 2 years old, but hey, instead of paying $1,400, I got it for $600. It's got the UL stamp, everything's fine, it's in really good shape. And I needed that, because I've saved $800, and that $800 went through all this pipe here, which I had to buy. I've got 24-inch length of double wall 6-inch pipe. I have an adjustable length of 6-inch because I don't know the exact distance. It has to go back up. I also have 3 lengths of 3-foot chimney pipe. This is 10-inch diameter. And over here, I have a storm collar and the decorator ceiling support kit, which includes the rain cap, the attic insulation shield, decorator ceiling support, and stovepipe adapter. Everything I need to get this stove up and running. So, let's get to work. I attached a string to the center of the roof flashing and used a bolt as a plumb bob to position the stove flue collar dead center. That allowed me to position the ceiling support, which needed a wood frame with a 14 3/8-inch square hole. I made sure the bottom of the support was level and then fastened the assembly in place. The first length of chimney pipe went in next. And it was followed by the insulation guard. Now, the guard was not necessary in my case, but I put it in place should I ever decide to enclose the ceiling. Before putting the remaining chimney pipe in place, I needed to cut back more of the roof wood. This is because I did not have the minimum clearance to combustibles as required by WETT. I added the remaining chimney pipe from the inside, but the next part had to be done from the outside. The rain cap just twisted on and required no additional hardware. But the storm collar needs to be strapped in place and high temperature silicone caulking to secure it and seal it. A few days later came a familiar sight in Atlantic Canada. It looks like the perpetual clouds of doom have rolled in. It's going to be a bad storm. The next morning, I checked the cabin for any issues. Well, last night it rained, and that's good news. Actually needed some rain. However, when I got into the cabin, I found all this water on top of the stove. The roof leaks. And I know where. I can see the wet wood up there. And I think what happened is when I had to cut back the roof because I needed that 2 inches around the chimney pipe, there wasn't enough clearance.
I probably intruded onto the metal roofing with the oscillating tool. So, gotta go back up the roof again, see if I can fix it.
Well, it's a miserable day to be on the roof, but it's leaking and I know it's going to get even worse, so I gotta fix it now. Now, I did look at the roof and I don't see any signs where the oscillating tool came through the metal roofing. However, I do see some potential leak points around here, so I've got to fix them. It's been raining, it's wet, and another problem is the storm collar has come loose. I didn't put enough silicone on it. I can't fix that now, but it's because it's wet. But what I can do is I can use some Resisto, it's like a roofing tar, and just try to fix around here. It's a Band-Aid solution, but it's going to get wetter and I can't have a leak coming in my cabin.
I didn't have a putty knife, so I used the strip of a cedar shingle to spread the sealant into the gaps in the flashing. It's a little messy, but as long as it works, that's all I care. Now, this is the 6-inch pipe. I've only put up the chimney pipe at this point. And this is double walled. And the reason it doesn't have to be double walled, except if you have it double walled, then you can bring it a little closer to the wall. I think according to WETT, you've got to be within 18 inches of a single wall pipe. But you can get a little closer if it's double walled, and I want to get as close as I can so I have a little bit more room around here. So this is the double walled 6-inch, and this one here, take it out here, is the adjustable, and hopefully I can adjust that. Let's just see here, which way does it go? Oh boy. Okay, hopefully I can adjust that. It's got to come out somehow. Oh boy, it's on there tight. Come on. Well, I guess I should have done that. Oh, here we go. There, I got it. Okay. And the second piece is in there. Now, I actually could have got one piece of adjustable that fit the entire length. However, one wasn't available. That's why I got two. When you're rural, sometimes you got to sort of take what you can get. And this will do fine. Oh, there we go. Tight fit. Get it in there. Okay, that's a little bit of a challenge here. Get that up first. Twist it, and then maybe bring it down. How about that? Come on, there we go. There. That should do it. There is a collar here, which I've got to put on. I think that just goes like that. Stops it from sliding down. Okay, finish that up, and I'll have a wood stove. Well, of course, more rain was on the way. So I took a break from the cabin to do a little camping. Well, I'm back, and it's cold in here. Right now it is 6 Celsius, which is about 42 degrees Fahrenheit. The cabin has not been heated. Outside it's even colder because I saw frost on the shingles of some houses. So winter is definitely just around the corner. That's why this stove was so important to get figured out. Now, there was at least 3 days of rain, And first good news is there are no leaks. I finally sealed the flashing. Everything is bone dry, so that's really good. But the second thing is I had a WETT inspector come in and look over everything, and guess what? I passed! I now have a WETT certificate, and that is so important because first of all, it means my wood stove is safe, it's efficient, and the third thing is I can now insure the cabin because with the old stove, nobody would insure it for me, and that is really important because I'm not here all the time. Something could happen and I'd lose my whole investment, and of course I want to do more things as well, so I really had to get that over and done with. That is great. But what I want to do is, if there's others out there that want to know what a WETT inspection entails, I'm just going to give you a few pointers because now that I have the checklist, it makes it a lot easier. So let me just sort of read a few things. And I think the first one is, let me just see here. The first thing they looked at was the stove itself, and probably the most important thing is that it had the certification label in the back, and it does, so I'm okay with, they were okay with that. I mean, if you don't have that one, it could be a lot of problems because it could severely limit where you could use an older stove, and I couldn't do that. But most of it is actually more about clearances. You don't want something around it to catch fire. For example, the shortest distance of the stove to the back wall, what was required for this particular stove was 10 inches, and right now I have 12. The good news about that is I don't need that green sheet metal that I put behind that anymore. I can have the natural wood that I had, which will make it look a lot better. Another one was the shortest distance from the pipe, the stove pipe, to the back wall. And because I ended up with the double-walled pipe, it only requires 6 inches. And I've got 14, so I can probably even put a shelf behind there and it won't interfere. But the others were things like the floor pad underneath and the flashing, but my floor pad was not big enough. However, instead of replacing it, they just let me add an additional pad to the back, and that passed, so that's good. But the other important one was the distance from the chimney pipe to the combustibles, which is basically the roof. I needed 2 inches. I cut out a little bit more, and it passed. Those are the basics. There's other things, but it's really, really important that you get WETT certified if you have a wood stove. You don't want to have issues because it is your main heat source. So I'm just happy that it's finally passed, and tonight I can fire it up.
My last step was to remove the metal heat shield I put up a year ago. First the metal, and then the cement board. That looks so much better. The night comes early in the late fall.
Well, the sun's gone down, it's getting dark, and I think it's time to fire up this stove. Now, some might wonder, well, why didn't I just fire it up this morning when it was cold? Well, it was because I knew it was going to warm up. Like right now, it is about 12 degrees Celsius, which is, I think, about 54 degrees Fahrenheit, something around there. And that was okay for me to work in. I put a jacket on, I was working in here, I was working outside, it was the same temperature, I was fine. But at night, when you want to relax, and especially when you want to go to bed, it's preferred, it's a little warmer, so now I'm going to start it up. Now, as far as fuel goes, and I guess the way most people would say it is, well, what is the best? And that's how I like to say it, not what is the most efficient. Because if you go to what is the most efficient, it would probably be hardwood like oak or maple. And I don't have any of that. So I'm not using oak or maple. What is best for me personally is what I can salvage, especially if it's on the property. I have down below here some pine, and I believe I also have some poplar in there. But I also have recycled 2x4s, which I think is either spruce or fir. They're fine. It may not burn as good, but I'm not getting somebody to cut down a forest so I can use the stove. I'm going to use whatever I have available. Now to start it off, again, same kind of theory. I have lots of pine needles, so that's going to be what I'm going to start off with. That burns really quickly. And I have lots of cardboard from all the pipe I had to buy. And flyers, newspaper. I think this should do fine. But, and a little bit of cardboard as well. Okay. And after that comes old shingles. Stuff that wasn't good enough to use in the side of the cabin. I think that's enough to start it off. Now I just got to make sure that that's the intake is out to start. And I lost my little zapper, you know, the one I use with the trailer to start the heater. Don't know where it went. I just had it a few days ago, but it disappeared, so I got to use just one of these barbecue lighters. Ready to start. Let's roll. And I'm just going to close that a little bit. I'll just leave it open just a jar. And yes, this is the first time I've used this stove. Somebody else used it before me because it's used, but it's going straight up. I'm hoping it's going to go out the stovepipe soon. Getting a little smoky. Well, it's starting to crackle now, so I think I can add the 2x4s. This is such a huge difference because the stove before, you couldn't see anything. You just had little tiny little peepholes. In this case, I've got a full, you know, window display. It's wonderful. Well, the fire's blazing away and it's hot in here, which is why the coat was taken off. It's about 22 degrees Celsius, which I think is around 72, 73 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's getting warmer, so I'm not going to feed it anymore. You can see I got my little fan going there and it's just blowing away. Now, the next part is we got to discuss costs, because I'm sure everybody wants to know how much it costs for all of this. And it was a lot more than I expected. The only real deal that I got was the wood stove itself, because I bought used. This particular model would cost about $1,200 Canadian plus tax, which is about $1,400. I paid $600, so I saved $800 on the wood stove itself, which is fantastic. But everything else was not cheap, including the pipe and pipe support, which was a total of $1,213.08. The sealant for the storm collar was $22.99. And that skinny little stove pad cost an outrageous $149.02. The inspection was $253. So you put it all together and it was $2,238.09 Canadian, or about 1,633 US dollars. If I had to buy a new stove, it would have been more, around $3,000 Canadian, which would have been about probably $2,000 American. So yes, it's a bit of an investment, but it's so efficient. It's so hot in here. I don't need to put any fuel in this for the next hour and a half. I've got to let it cool down in here. I think it's going to be pretty toasty tonight. I'm sleeping here, so I'll see. So I'm happy. I've got an efficient stove. It looks great. It just fits perfectly with the cabin. I mean, hey, you got a cabin, you gotta have a wood stove, and this is a good one. Well, no beer tonight. Just a little boiled rainwater and some Egyptian licorice tea. Oh, I'll be warm tonight. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my others as well. And a peaceful wood fire to close. Stay warm, everybody.